Hi, my name is Breana Hargrave. I am the coordinator for a program called LED 716. LED 716 sends out free tutors to preschoolers who had an elevated lead level, and we work to minimize the effects of lead on learning. It's a 28-week program, and we work one-on-one with the kids on social emotional learning and a little bit of academics as well. This actually came about because I had a high elevated lead level, which actually led me to the job. My mom actually found it and she told me to apply for it. From our experience with lead, I have a lot of passion behind it and I want to help people overcome this.
You live in Buffalo, which is one of the top 10 cities in the United States with lead poisoning. I imagine you probably have a lot of applicants. How do you decide which kids are getting services and which are not? Do you have a certain criteria, or you just try to help as many kids as you possibly can?
We get referrals from the Erie County Health Department. We also go to Head Start screenings to talk to parents about lead and see if there's any kids we can help. We go to daycares. I do tablings in the community to teach about lead and get people to understand the program. Like I said, referrals, and then going around looking for those parents and kids that need that help.
Do you find parents are reluctant to get help for their kids? What's sort of the reaction when you tell parents about your program?
A lot of parents here don't understand what lead is. I have to explain what lead is and then how it affects the kid after. Some are happy to see that there's help out there because there's not a lot of programs that help kids after the exposure. Some might be a little hesitant because they're afraid that their child might get labeled in a system, and some might think that the lead is their fault. They just don't have that knowledge or understanding, so I try to explain it.
That's incredibly courageous and also just so necessary. I don't think people understand that helping kids once they're diagnosed is very difficult. What do you see when a child goes through your program?
A lot of our kids are suffering from speech. A lot of them don't talk. High emotions, like maybe they cry a lot because they're frustrated, or maybe have a high emotion of anger. We work one-on-one to really love them where they're at, meet them where they're at, and then teach them from there.
I love that. Love them where they're at. You're giving them the tools that they need, those tools that they now have to have because of what happened to them. So I feel like we as a society, we owe it to those kids. Do you think that your experience with lead poisoning and growing up with it helps you relate to the parents and to fight for these kids?
Yes, definitely. I was poisoned in a home on the east side of Buffalo. I know I was eating paint chips at the time out of the windshield. It was a difficult time for my family because not only was my mom dealing with a lead-exposed child, and she also didn't know anything about lead before I was exposed. She also had just lost my dad and her husband.
I'm so sorry. That's a lot for your mom.
Yeah, she's a real strong woman. She had to go through that. She had to go through the doctor visits and getting out the house and everything alone. So I know that it was really tough for her and not understanding what's actually happening and how it could affect her kid. They told her that I would be behavioral, that I could have issues learning in school. I know I was hospitalized for 2 weeks. I read articles in the Buffalo News where my mom talked about what happened. And I just know at the time in Buffalo, the elevated lead level was a 10. And I believe I was like six times the level. So I had a very high lead level.
Yeah.
But I do know there was programs back then where they had housing for families that had a high lead exposure, so they would remove you quickly. And I do think that's part of the reason why I don't have as many effects, because I was removed from the exposure so quickly. And I think that's very important. I just know growing up, I was real quiet, and I think a lot of people think being shy and quiet is a normal thing, but it's not. I just remember being in a classroom and I might know the answer to a question, but I was just scared. I don't know. I just wouldn't raise my hand and talk. Even just high emotions. Like I just remember third grade, I forgot my homework, and most kids probably wouldn't get upset about that, but I broke out in tears and they couldn't calm me down. I just remember mom teacher calling my mom. She's like, she's crying. We can't stop her. And that's like a story I vividly remember from my childhood. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why am I so sad? But it's just hard to regulate that emotion. And even now as an adult, I learned to regulate my emotions. But it is times where I might get frustrated over things that most people don't get frustrated, like parking. Is a very frustrating thing for me as an adult. Like I'd rather just go somewhere and pay to park, because I might just freak out and start crying in the car, because it's just, and it sounds silly, but it's just it's really how it affects a person later on. But I'm learning to overcome those things, and I know that other people that this happened to can overcome it. And I think it really is that intervention. My mom worked one-on-one on me academically as a child, but I do think if I had more social emotional therapy, I think a lot of those kids are able to control what they would label as the behaviors later on in life and as they go through school and as an adult. As I go deeper into the field, I didn't realize how many other people dealt with it. I'm able to share my experience and talk about how my mom dealt with it, what we went through, and a lot of families, they find that common ground. I have calls from families that tell me, I don't have anybody to talk about this with. This is not talked about in the community. So a lot of times you're just happy to come across somebody that had that experience, that understands and can, because it's just not talked about.
I mean, that's part of the reason why we made the podcast, because the same thing. I feel like, I know when Cooper was diagnosed, I felt really alone. I want us to feel like we have a community. I want us to feel like we're connected.
I admire you sharing your story, because there's so many families I talk to that think this is their fault, and they don't want to talk about it because they don't understand it. When someone shares their story, that helps other people come to light and share their story. And it was extremely emotional for me, because I can relate, and I know a bunch of other families that can relate. Thank you for that.
If there's one thing that you want people to understand about lead poisoning, what would it be?
I would love for them to really understand how it affects a person later. I think a lot of times you have a child that had a lead exposure, and it's when they're young and they're not talking yet, they're not fully developed. So I think it's really overlooked at that young age because you can't see it yet. I would love for people to really understand that it's not something that, even though you can't see what's going on, we have to do that intervention just to lower the chances of what happened later. I was diagnosed with asthma third grade, and I'm realizing a lot of kids that had an elevated lead level, they are diagnosed with asthma sometime in their life. Even digestion issues, things like that. My background is in health and wellness, and one thing I'm big on is nutrition. After the exposure, I think a lot of families should know that what you eat, what you put into your body is so important, because what you put in your body can help absorb that lead and take it out the body.
You're absolutely right. Studies are showing that calcium-rich diets really help, insulate the kids from absorbing more lead. Iron-rich diets, having magnesium. It's really true that diet does play a big part of it. Thank you again so much for the work that you do, and I'm so glad that we've met and that you were here today. What your family has been through, and the fact that you're giving so much back is really, really a testament to you and your mom. That's really amazing that you're able to do that.